Welcome to the History AI podcast, where the past comes alive with facts, anecdotes, and a dash of humor. Here are your hosts, Chuck and Marco.
Welcome to the History AI podcast. I'm Chuck.
And I'm Marco. We would like to give a shout out to fellow drinking bro Davey for today's topic. Today, we're diving into the life of a truly unique figure in American military history, Jake McNiece.
A man whose life story reads like an adventure novel. But before we jump in, remember to subscribe, rate, and share our podcast if you enjoy our journey through history.
Let's take a step back into the early 20th century, diving into the life of Jake McNiece, born in 1919. Jake's story begins in Oklahoma, a land shaped by hardship and the Dust Bowl.
That's right. The Dust Bowl era was a time of severe dust storms, damaging the ecology and agriculture of the American prairies during the 1930s. Imagine growing up in that environment.
Absolutely. Jake's family, like many others, struggled through these tough times. They were part of the Cherokee Nation, which added a rich cultural heritage but also a complex history of challenges.
You know, Marco, Jake's Cherokee roots played a significant role in his character. He inherited a sense of resilience and a fierce spirit from his ancestors.
That fierce spirit often got him into trouble, though. Jake was known for his rebellious nature from a young age. Stories go that he was more at home in a scuffle than sitting quietly in a classroom.
True, and it's said that his mother's attempts to discipline him often fell on deaf ears. He was a bit of a wild child, to say the least.
During his teenage years, the world around Jake was rapidly changing. The Roaring Twenties brought about a period of economic prosperity and cultural dynamism. But this was soon overshadowed by the onset of the Great Depression in 1929.
Jake witnessed firsthand the economic hardships that hit American families, including his own. This period likely instilled in him a sense of determination and the ability to persevere through adversity.
It's fascinating how his early experiences shaped his character. From facing the realities of the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression to dealing with personal challenges, Jake's early life laid the foundation for the extraordinary path he would later take.
Now, let's talk about the pivotal moment in Jake's life, his decision to join the U.S. Army. It was World War II, a time when the world was in turmoil, and Jake, true to his nature, decided to dive right into the chaos.
He enlisted in 1942. Now, you might think a guy like Jake would struggle with military discipline. And you'd be right.
Absolutely. Jake was assigned to the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment, 101st Airborne Division. But here's where it gets interesting. He became part of a demolition saboteur section nicknamed the Filthy 13.
The name sounds like a biker gang, doesn't it? These guys were notorious for their rough and tumble ways. They were more likely to be found playing pranks and getting into mischief than polishing their boots.
Speaking of boots, rumor has it Jake once tried to use his as a makeshift pillow. Let's just say, it didn't smell like roses.
The Filthy 13 were known for their disregard for standard military protocol. They had a unique style, from sporting mohawks to not always adhering to uniform standards. Jake once said, "Our idea of a good inspection was when no one got arrested."
That sounds just like him. Despite their unconventional ways, they were highly effective. Jake participated in some of the most significant operations of the war, including D-Day. His fearlessness and quick thinking made him a natural leader.
But let's not forget, it wasn't all heroics. Jake had his share of run-ins with military discipline. He often joked that he spent more time in the brig than some sailors.
True. His rebellious spirit was both a blessing and a curse. But one thing's for sure, Jake McNiece was not your average soldier.
Absolutely. His time in the military was as colorful as his personality. A real-life action hero with a nose for trouble. Let's delve into Jake McNiece's extraordinary service during World War II. He wasn't just any soldier, he was part of some of the most critical battles of the war.
Right you are, Marco. First up, D-Day, the Normandy invasion. On June 6, 1944, Jake and the Filthy 13 parachuted behind enemy lines just before the Allied invasion. Their mission? To destroy bridges and prevent German reinforcements from reaching the front.
Imagine jumping out of a plane into enemy territory in the dead of night. Jake once joked, "We weren't sure if we were paratroopers or just plain crazy."
That's McNiece for you. But it wasn't all jokes. The mission was fraught with danger. They faced intense enemy fire and had to navigate through unfamiliar terrain.
Next up, Operation Market Garden. This was another major airborne operation. Jake and his team were tasked with securing and defending key bridges in the Netherlands. It was a brutal fight against a well-prepared enemy.
Jake's bravery was on full display. Despite heavy losses, he kept pushing forward. He had a saying, "If you're going to be stupid, you better be tough." And tough he was.
And let's not forget the Battle of the Bulge, one of the largest and bloodiest battles fought by the United States during World War II. Jake and his unit were right in the thick of it, enduring freezing conditions and constant enemy attacks.
They say McNiece was as stubborn as the winter was cold. He refused to let the harsh conditions and the relentless German assaults break his spirit.
His final major action was in Berchtesgaden, Germany. They were part of the force that moved into Hitler's mountain retreat. Jake later joked, "We went looking for souvenirs, but ended up with a hangover instead."
That's our Jake. Through each of these battles, his leadership, courage, and unorthodox approach helped carry his unit through some of the toughest fights in the European theater.
It's clear that Jake McNiece wasn't just participating in history, he was making it with every jump, every battle, every defiant act against the odds.
Now, let's talk about the other side of Jake McNiece's military career, the trouble he got into. For Jake, rules were more like guidelines.
That's an understatement. Jake's disdain for military protocol was legendary. His unit, the Filthy 13, was as famous for their disciplinary issues as they were for their bravery.
Right. One famous incident involved an unauthorized modification of uniforms. Jake and his men decided to shave their heads into mohawks and paint their faces, mimicking their Native American heritage. Let's just say, the higher-ups weren't amused.
Imagine the shock on their commanding officer's face. And then there were the countless times Jake found himself in the stockade. His list of misdemeanors was as long as his list of commendations.
Including, if rumors are to be believed, an incident involving a commandeered jeep, a general's tent, and a lot of unintended mud.
Classic Jake. But it wasn't all fun and games. His insubordination had serious consequences. Despite his effectiveness in combat, his repeated flouting of the rules couldn't be overlooked forever.
Exactly. It all came to a head when Jake was eventually discharged from the army. Officially, it was due to demerits, military speak for he just wouldn't follow orders.
Jake once joked about his discharge, saying, "I guess they finally realized I was better at breaking rules than following them."
Despite the trouble he got into, his service was undeniably impactful. He was a soldier who fought bravely but lived by his own code. His discharge, in many ways, was as unconventional as his time in the army.
Indeed. Jake McNiece's military career was a wild ride from start to finish, marked by bravery, rebellion, and a fair share of mischief.
So, after all the gunfire and glory, what happened to Jake McNiece after the war? His post-military life was as colorful as his time in service.
Definitely. After being discharged, Jake, like many veterans, found adjusting to civilian life a challenge. He often joked, "I was trained to jump out of planes and blow things up. The post office didn't know what they were in for when they hired me."
That's right. Jake worked as a postman for a while. Can you imagine getting your mail from a former paratrooper? Special delivery, the McNiece way, fast, furious, and a little bit unpredictable.
He also tried his hand at various jobs. From oilfield work to construction, it seemed like Jake was on a quest to find something as adrenaline-pumping as his days with the Filthy 13.
Yeah, but despite his tough exterior, Jake had a softer side. He was known for his storytelling and would often regale friends and family with tales of his wartime escapades.
True, and let's not forget his personal life. Jake married, though he once quipped, "I faced German machine guns and survived. But nothing scared me more than my wife when I forgot our anniversary."
Classic Jake. He was also active in veterans affairs, often attending reunions and sharing his experiences with younger generations. He became a sort of informal ambassador for the 101st Airborne, embodying the spirit of the division.
His later years were a bit quieter, but Jake never lost that spark, that mischievous glint in his eye. He was living proof that while you can take the soldier out of the war, you can never fully take the war out of the soldier.
Absolutely. Jake McNiece's post-military life was a testament to his resilience, his adaptability, and his enduring sense of humor. A true character, in every sense of the word.
Sadly, we lost this incredible man in 2013. His death marked the end of an era.
Jake's impact, though, lives on. His bravery and unorthodox approach inspire many. He showed us that sometimes, rules are meant to be bent, if not broken.
And with that, we wrap up today's episode. Thank you for listening to the History AI podcast.
Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share. Until next time, keep diving into history. Step into the thrilling world of sports betting with The Starting Line, an introduction to sports betting. Whether you're a beginner or simply curious, this comprehensive guide takes you from the basics to the advanced. Learn to decode odds, develop winning strategies, and bet responsibly. Get your copy now and transform every game into an adventure. The Starting Line is your first step towards mastering the art of sports betting. Available on Amazon.